What's happening, webheads, guys? Welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. And guys, I'm Mike Spider Slayer, getting ready to bring you another episode of After the Pull. That's right, guys. This is the video series where I take some of my most highly anticipated comics and I see if they live up to the hype. And if you want to see a full rundown of all the comic books that I read, check out my rapid fire comic book reviews every Sunday as I talk about all of those comic books. So before we jump into it, guys, I just want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video, the Night Library Kickstarter that's getting ready to launch on October 8th. Launching soon on Kickstarter from the Night Library. Guys, it's going to be The Red Hunt. It's going to be released on Kickstarter on October 8th. Give them a follow. Back them when you can. Red Hunt is a gritty, action-packed story of violence, monsters, and the blood-crazed hunters who seek them out. Some men hunt the monsters, but others, they may become them. So again, guys, check out Kickstarter from the Night Library. It's Red Hunt Issue 1. You can support those independent publishers, and you can also support the channel. All right, webheads, so let's get this party started here. One of my most highly anticipated books this week was Hulk issue 9, as this kicks off a new story arc written by Donny Cates. Artwork is done by Ryan Ottley, and this is titled Hulk Planet. So Hulk is going back to another planet. You know, I felt like the beginning of Donny Cates' Hulk was kind of different, and then we got interrupted with the Hulk Banner War, and now we get to kind of get almost the reset button on what maybe the story that Donny Cates is going to tell here, right? We get introduced to a new character by the name of Monolith. You get to see her here on the front cover. You don't really get to see her all that much in this comic. It wasn't until the last page until you really got to see her. So let's open up this book. Let's check it out. Let's see what it looks like. And right from the start, you're like, whoa, what's going on here with Bruce Banner? But actually, he's having a therapy session with Doc Samson. It's kind of like a protocol that he put in play for himself to keep his mind in check. And in this issue, you get to learn a little bit more of like a catch-up of who Titan was, because I felt like we got introduced to that character, saw a little bit of that character in, you know, issues past, and that was really it, and really it's another persona of the Hulk. And then we got introduced to a childhood friend from Bruce as well, which I feel like he's going to play a higher role in the future, and his name is Logan, which I thought was kind of cool. But then as the issue progresses, we wind up going back away from the therapy sessions, which I thought was the more interesting part of the book, and we wind up seeing Hulk go into his Starship Hulk once again, and he's created all these other, I guess, versions of himself to run this Starship Hulk, which is kind of interesting, right? And then they find this other planet, which is gamma radiated, which I found quite interesting. And it looks like it's all being run by different types of Hulks and monsters and stuff like that. And again, at the end of the issue, you wind up coming across the new character Monolith there that looks like she's a Hulk as well. I wasn't overly impressed by this book. I found myself more interested when it came to Bruce Banner's psyche and his childhood friend. I wanted to dive deeper into that. Maybe that's what this book is trying to get away from, is the really in-depth storytelling, where I felt like Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk was really in-depth. So I don't know. I just want that fine balance. I don't want anything not to happen in this book. I want something to happen, but I don't want it to be overly complicated, if that actually makes sense to me. But I was a little bit disappointed, but I get it. This is the first part of the new story arc, so we'll see where it goes from here. What's up, guys? Just as I was editing this video, I realized that number 4 wound up getting erased somehow. I don't know where it is, but just a heads up, A Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths got that number 4 spot this particular week. Great action to the book, great storytelling. At the end of the day, it's more like a Teen Titans story. Nightwing is taking lead here, and we'll see what happens when we get towards the conclusion. If it means a much better DC universe, then hopefully that is the case, that we'll get some books that we have not seen in quite some time. So number 4 is Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths. Here we go. Coming in at number 3, we have Dan Slott's Adjectiveless Spider-Man issue 1, drawn by the great Mark Bagley. Now, a lot of you guys told me in my comic book haul that you weren't going to touch this book with a 10-foot pole, no matter how good the artwork is, because you couldn't stand Dan Slott. I can understand that. I mean, Dan Slott wrote The Amazing Spider-Man for 10 years. He is the longest writer to ever write the book, and you're just tired of him, right? And even though I didn't agree with everything that Dan Slott did with The Amazing Spider-Man, there was some things that he did that I did enjoy. Now, I give him credit also for thinking outside of the box and taking risks. Was he on the title too long? Yeah, maybe so. But going back to this book, him taking over the Adjectiveless title, I thought this book was well written. I thought the way he writes Spider-Man with his jokes and his quips, I think is really well done. I think he did not overwrite the book where he did that in the Fantastic Four. He actually had Mark Bagley draw the book where he gave him room to breathe, and I really appreciated that. So let's open up this book. Let's check it out. So we can see that opening pages here, and we get to see he's got room to breathe, and there was nice pacing, nice action in this book. We get a nice 2-page spread, and the way Dan Slott wrote this book also, I thought he tied it into what's going on in The Amazing Spider-Man right now really well, recognizing that Norman Osborn is his boss and whatnot. So stuff like that was done really good. The first quarter of this book had to deal with Spider-Man defeating street level thugs, and honestly, that was the best part of the book for me, him just being Peter Parker Spider-Man. Then we dive into the whole Web of Life situation, and we get to meet the main villain of this book by the name of Shathra, who wants to take over the Web of Life. And she releases all her swarm of wasp spiders. And when you get stung by these things, right, you become part of her swarm or whatnot. And once this book got halfway through, we get to see all these recycled characters that we've already seen before that Dan Slott has introduced. And this is where the book kind of takes a little bit of a downward turn for me, because there's no real element of surprise going forward. The one thing that we do get as surprise is yeah, we do get Moreland back, but he's not there as foe. He's there as maybe not necessarily friend either, but to work with Peter Parker Spider-Man to take over this Shathra villain, because she wants to take over the entire Web of Life. And without these spiders in play, how can the inheritors live? So it's kind of like, Moreland is forced to work with Spider-Man, but Spider-Man thinks he's a foe at first, and they start fighting each other, and it was kind of, had some good action in there also. Once we figured out that Moreland was a good guy, we get to see betrayal by Spider-Man Noir, because he was infected by one of these spider wasp things, right? And we get to see Jessica Drew, which looks like she is no longer with us, and we get to see the other spider characters that were mentioned in previous issues of Edge of Spider-Verse that got stung by a wasp are now being controlled by the swarm of Shathra. And that's how this book actually ends. So again, the book was good. It was well written, well paced. It had great action. But to kick off a new book, it's like, why do you want to start off with Spider-Verse stuff when we've already seen all this before? And I feel like this is a very predictable story where at the end of the day, maybe Spider-Man survives, I would think, and maybe all the Edge of Spider-Verse characters die, but I need something to really surprise me here to get me going, oh wow, this was fantastic. This was a good read. I liked it, like I said, but I need something different from Dan Slott. Coming in at number 2, and I repeat, number 2, is Batman issue 128. And you're probably thinking, Mike, really? Batman's not number one? How could it not be number one when you're hyping this book up and this is like one of your favorite books ever? At the end of the day, it just had to go with creativity why the next book gets number one. But Batman issue 128 is so good. Like, I love this book. And I predicted it. I knew what was going to happen. And in this book, right, we wind up seeing Superman battle failsafe. Now, this book, written by Chip Zdarsky and artwork done by Jorge Jimenez, is so awesome, man. The action scenes are so good in this book, and just the dialogue and the way it's written and the narration by Batman or Bruce is so awesome too. But right away, you get to see Failsafe pull out these freaking kryptonite blades and start battling Superman. So you got to remember now, right? Failsafe was created to defeat Batman and the entire Justice League in case something goes wrong, right? So you know that Failsafe is planned for all these contingencies here. So I knew right from the start when Superman showed up in the last issue that he had something in his little arsenal to defeat Superman and the rest of the good guys on who he's going to face, right? So right away, here we go. Action ramps up in this book, and we get to see him battle freaking Superman, and he stabs Superman right in the gut. But who makes a badass appearance in this book, which I didn't see coming though, was freaking Green Arrow. Let me tell you guys, Green Arrow needs to have his own book again. Just leave it in the comments below if you agree with me here. Such an awesome scene. But no matter what Justice League member is thrown at Failsafe, Failsafe just handles them like butter, right? You get to see our heroes here lying on the floor, and we get to see a desperate attempt at Batman escaping with Superman, and Batman sitting there going, as long as I am in play, everyone is in danger, so I need to go in hiding. Failsafe goes in Gotham trying to find Batman, and what happens in the issue is we see Batman actually go into Atlantis, and Aquaman tries to save him. He goes into some hyperbolic fish chamber where he gets all his wounds healed, and they have to think of a plan to try to stop Failsafe. Failsafe has pulled an Ultron, and I've compared Failsafe to Ultron, I think, in my top 10 comic book covers. He looks like Ultron, kind of acts like Ultron, and in Gotham, he's created minions, robots, duplicated himself to try to find Batman, right? And to take over all of Gotham. The cool thing is in this book is like the bat symbol is not good enough, so he destroys the bat symbol and he creates little lights all over the place to make this huge bat symbol to bring Batman to him to end this conflict once and for all. So I thought this was a really good book. Tons of action, a little bit predictable, but man, it's who cares? It's like when you read this book, you're in for it for the ride. I love this story. This is probably the best story arc that I have read from a Batman writer in quite some time. Here it is. Here's the number one book. This one goes to Dark Ride issue 1, written by Joshua Williamson. Now, I said this when this book was coming out. I'm a huge amusement park fan. I love going to Universal Studios, Disney World, all those places, and this book reminded me of Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios, except with the entire park filled with horror rides and things like that. What I appreciated from this book, written by Joshua Williamson, is that this is a passion project of his. Besides writing comic books, he said he's always wanted to design amusement park rides or his own park, and this book got to scratch that itch. So I was like, oh man, that's pretty badass. So I wanted to see what he had to offer and what his thought process was when it came to designing a park. And being that he loved horror, he thought that this would be the perfect comic book, right? And he puts himself as kind of the creator, the main character in this book, and actually the person that possibly gets murdered in this book by the name of Owen. I think his name is Owen Seasons. So the way this book opens up is we go back into the past here, and we get to see that this was the creator of Devil's Land, and his wife said, these rides are too dark and there's no way that no one's ever going to come to this park. And so, you know, temperatures rise, things happen, and he basically murders his wife, right? And to cover up the murder, what does he do? He lives close to Vegas. He takes the body, buries it, and then gets called by a supernatural being. And we don't know who that is. It's from the grave, and it's calling Arthur, right? And what happens from there, you don't know. But the next thing it opens up to is Joshua Williams' vision of Devilland. And we get to see everything that's in this park. And it's all horror inspired. And as a Halloween Horror Nights fan, I would have loved to see like horror rides like this, right? So totally insane. We get introduced to the main character. His name is Owen. It's his first day on the job, and he's a janitor, basically. He gets to do cleanup duty. He has this passion for this park. He's followed the history of this park. He wants to work for this company and move up. I mean, he's got great intentions here. And just seeing this park, as you're reading through this book, it's absolutely awesome. The worlds that are here, like Murder Mountain, Zombie Zone, Werewolf Woods, like I would love to visit all those particular places. You go into the security system of the park, on what happens in the park on these rides. You get to meet the head of security. You got to see the mascots in here. It was so much fun. And then we get to see the boy that runs the park, and that's actually the creator's son, okay? And he was asking Owen, he sees how much passion he has. He's like, oh, what can we do for this park to bring in the crowds and things like that? And he's just like, oh, wow. He's like, you're asking my opinion? And the owner's son, his name is Sam. And all of a sudden, while they're having this conversation, we get to see the sister come in, and she is a social media influence, and she calls herself like Halloween, and everybody loves her. Like she's very sexy, she's into all kinds of crazy stuff, and you never know what she's going to do next. And brother and sister are trying to be nice at each other in front of the press and stuff like that. A really interesting book. As we go through this issue, we wind up seeing that there is a social media guy that covers amusement parks. He's sitting there saying that there's sales that are declining. Where's the owner? Where has he been? They haven't come out with a ride in a long time. And when everybody leaves, kind of like the park comes alive. We see Owen here wind up going to this roller coaster, and the roller coaster kind of traps him in, and he winds up going for a ride. It gets very dark at the end. And yeah, he winds up looking like he winds up getting killed, but I don't know if that's the case here. And we get to see that Sam talks with his father. He's talking about how the park is struggling and how the father needs to create a new ride to get buzz back in the park once again. So my thought process here after reading the book is all these rides in this park has been created by the souls of other people. So whether a murder happens or whatever it is, once so many souls are collected, it's like, oh, we can build your park better. We can, it's like selling your soul to the devil type of thing. And that's what I feel like is going on in this book. Based off of this last page, we get to see our young lead here, Owen, wind up getting possessed by these creatures and whatnot, and we get to see things happening on the drawing board. And one of the coolest things at the end of this book, after the story is all wrapped up, is that Joshua Williamson has actually created a park map. So if you were to actually go to this park and this thing existed, here is your map. He has labeled, named, and described every single ride and attraction in this park. Oh my gosh. How awesome is that? That's just going the extra mile for me. Definitely the #1 pick of the week. So will Dark Ride reign supreme through the entire comic book week? We'll find out on Sunday on my Rapid Review show. It still has to go against Saturday Morning Adventures, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, issue 1. We have the Sexy Siren's Gate, issue 1. We have Sweetie Candy Vigilante, issue 1. Junkyard Joe, issue 1. We have the Edge of Spider-Verse, issue 5. We have 3 Keys, issue 1. We have Gun Honey, issue 2. And then we have Rogue Sun. This is issue 7, the Choose Your Own Adventure book. So there you guys have it. There are books I still have to read. I appreciate you taking the time for watching. And of course, guys, if you love the content, here is all the books I picked up from the entire comic book week. And guys, as always, keep buying, keep collecting, but always read those comic books. Guys, I'll see you real soon. Take care. Bye.